In MMORPGs, it's very common for classes to fall into the completely useless category, but in most cases, it's just because there are better options and not because the class in question is literally unplayable. Today, we're going to talk about the Machinist, a powerful ranged damage dealer that's fighting tooth and nail, or maybe gun and barrel, to secure a comfortable place in Final Fantasy XIV's meta. The Machinist has 3 unique mechanics that compound to make a complex but exciting job. It has one combo, but unlike the combos of other jobs, it's not guaranteed to advance through the chain. Each shot allegedly has a 50% chance to unlock the next stage in the combo. However, that weakness can be bypassed with ammunition gained by reload and quick reload. In addition to guaranteeing your combo's advance, they increase your weapon skill potencies by 25 and reduce their heat generation to 0. Heat is the 3rd unique mechanic for the Machinist. Upon reaching level 52, your weapon skills start to generate heat when your gun is equipped with Gauss Barrel, which increases your damage dealt by 5%. When your heat reaches 100, your Gauss Barrel overheats and your attacks deal an additional 10% damage for 10 seconds. After overheat ends, your barrel can't be re-equipped for 10 seconds. Before we move on, there is a 4th mechanic to the Machinist, and while integral to its gameplay, it's not particularly complicated. The Machinist has access to 2 turrets, Rook and Bishop, but they're not like pets in the traditional MMO sense. They're more like damage over time abilities that can be active 100% of the time. The Rook turret is for single targets, and the Bishop turret is good against 2 or more enemies. Your turrets can be hypercharged, which causes them to deal increased damage, and their attacks apply a vulnerability debuff to all targets hit. They can also be detonated to deal a burst of damage, but they can't be recalled for 30 seconds after exploding. Their detonation deals roughly the same damage they would deal in 30 seconds of continuous fire, but if you have special buffs applied to yourself and the enemy has special debuffs applied to it, detonating your turret before those buffs and debuffs wear off will net you some increased damage. Once you reach level 70 and you have access to all of your heat generating and management tools, the gameplay loop of the Machinist reveals itself. Your goal is to stay between 50 and 100 heat until you're ready to unleash a big burst of damage. The reason this sweet spot is so important is because you gain access to heated versions of your weapon skills when between 50 and 100 heat and while overheated. Heated weapon skills deal an additional 30 potency of damage, and I've never said the word heat so many times in a single paragraph. Staying in the sweet spot is done by using your ammunition, cooldown, flamethrower, and barrel stabilizer. Ammunition prevents your shots from generating heat, cooldown reduces your heat by 25 and deals additional damage when between 50 and 100, flamethrower generates heat while it deals damage, and barrel stabilizer sets your heat to 50. There's a lot going on with this system, but if you're paying attention, it's intuitive. When your heat is 75 or above, use cooldown to bring it back down. If your heat is high and you want to overheat, toggle flamethrower for a few seconds until overheat kicks in, and then start shooting. Finally, if you're going to overheat, make sure barrel stabilizer is ready. Going from 0 to 50 without barrel stabilizer will take you a grand total of 10 global cooldowns, and during that time, you can't use ammunition because it stops heat generation. Also, using flamethrower on a single target for more than a few seconds will result in a huge loss in damage, so using that to go from 0 to 50 isn't the best idea either, though it is more satisfying than shooting a pea shooter for 30 seconds. The moral of the story is don't overheat unless barrel stabilizer is ready. This way you can jump right back into the sweet spot once your Gauss barrel is ready. Besides the unique mechanics, Wildfire is another one of the Machinist's defining characteristics. In a similar fashion to the Ninja, every 60 seconds, the Machinist can let loose with an explosive combination of abilities for a big burst of damage. This is done by pairing the Wildfire ability with other cooldowns. Wildfire stores up 25% of most of the damage you deal for 10 seconds, then detonates. Your goal is to fit as many attacks in that 10-second window as possible. There are a lot of different ways to chain your attacks together during Wildfire. There are some combinations on screen now that I've found powerful and consistent. Again, there are other and I'm sure more optimal ways to combo Wildfire, but this is what I find consistent and effective, especially for a new machinist like myself. On that note, mastering Wildfire is the key to dealing your maximum damage, so make sure you practice, otherwise your fat fingers will press the wrong buttons and your massive explosion will be like a little firecracker. The final thing to note about the Machinist is using overheat to your advantage. Against a single target, overheating before you activate Wildfire will give you a bigger boom if you line up your abilities correctly. In large dungeon pulls, overheating means more damage to multiple targets, but you also get the added benefit of not having to worry about the sweet spot. Your area attacks don't receive bonuses for being used between 50 and 100 heat, which means the downtime when your barrel isn't equipped isn't as severe. That downtime can also be bypassed with Flamethrower. Activating it during the final second of overheat makes it deal 10% increased damage for the entire duration of the skill. So, that's the gist of the Machinist. It's not rocket science, but this class punishes you for not paying attention to your skills. If you're watching Netflix doing mushrooms or whatever it is you do when you're lounging around, you're likely to unintentionally overheat, which can be devastating for your damage if not done at the right time. Detonating turrets can be a DPS gain, but if you forget to resummon them when the 30-second redeploy timer is up, you'll be at a loss. And finally, it's beyond easy to forget to reapply Hotshot, your 8% damage buff every 30 seconds, especially if you play a lot of different jobs like me. On that note, while the Machinist can still use more buffs and adjustments, it's far from unplayable, and as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most fun jobs in the game. It's just a real shame its performance levels are not on par with its enjoyment levels. With that said, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't be lazy, leave a comment because it makes me feel like I'm super popular. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.